You are now listening to the Fighting Back Podcast, and here's your host, Jessica Travis.
Welcome to the Fighting Back Podcast. I'm Jessica Travis, your host. This is episode 16. I am here with Chad Moses of To Write Love on Her Arms. Now, before we begin, I just want to let you guys know this episode contains discussion of mental health challenges, depression, addiction, self-injury, suicidal thoughts, and suicide. If you or someone you know is in crisis, please call the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline at 1-800-273-TALK, or you can call or text 988, or you can go to 988lifeline.org. So like I said, my guest today is Chad Moses. Chad serves as the Senior Director of Outreach and Experience for To Write Love on Her Arms, a nonprofit devoted to offering hope and support to people struggling with depression, addiction, self-injury, and suicidal thoughts. For more than a decade, Chad has traveled the country representing To Write Love on Her Arms at music festivals, community events, and college campuses, creating spaces for honest conversations about mental health and helping connect people to life-saving resource. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast today and talking with me about this really important subject.
Yeah, it's great to be here. Normally I get nervous talking to lawyers, but this is very disarming. I'm excited to have this conversation.
So let's just start by tell us about To Write Love on Her Arms. What is the organization? What was the original spark? And how has it evolved?
Yeah, absolutely. So for listeners out there, that is a long name, To Write Love on Her Arms. And the reason it's long, the reason it's awkward, the reason it's a bit poetic is that we didn't choose a name out of a business strategy. This didn't begin in an attempt to be at music festivals or to sell t-shirts or to be on podcasts, but originally it was all about helping a friend and telling her story. A story that takes place just under 20 years ago. We turned 20 next March, and a story that was motivated and propagated through conversations like this. People having honest conversations about things that we honestly haven't talked about enough. But when the story began almost 20 years ago, the focus was on her. So we're not trying to imply that one gender struggles more than any other with mental health challenges, but the her is a historical and still living person, our friend Renee. 20 years ago, Renee's story was one of cocaine addiction and self-injury. And with the encouragement of some friends, she had made the agreement that she would seek help for her addiction. Okay. But she just asked for one last night with her vices. That night, she had one last binge on cocaine. She locked herself in the bathroom, and with a razor, she wrote the word fuck up across her left forearm.
Wow.
The next day, she went to check into treatment just like she promised she would to her friends, and they actually turned her away due to the drugs that were still in her system. They said, right now, you're too great of a risk. We don't have a detox unit available, but if you can get clean and stay clean for 5 days, then we can try this again.
Wow.
So at that point, Renee took a really brave step. And instead of going back to her dealer's house, she crashed at a friend's place, a guy named David. And David, well, he was also in recovery, so he knew what the next 5 days were going to look like.
Rough.
So while she rested, he rallied the troops. He called some friends together. And when she woke up, she found that she was in the midst of some good company. So for the next 5 days, they were really driving home this point that, look, we believe in you, we believe in recovery, but you're not doing this on your own. This is going to be an us thing. Wherever we go, we're getting there together.
Okay.
So these 5 days, they were littered with conversations, learning each other's stories. They went to basketball games and rock shows to keep her distracted, got her plenty of cigarettes and coffee for the coming down, got her books for the road ahead. And over those days and nights, this idea to write love on her arms came out. The thought was that fuck up, what she put on her arm, that was not a statement of profanity. It was really a statement of identity. So to write love on her arms was suggesting that, hey, maybe we can rewrite this script. So no, Renee, you're not your past. No, Renee, you're not your present situation. Renee, you're worth more than where this story could go. The fact that you're still breathing, that's what matters to us. That's what we're believing in. That's what we're standing behind. So at the end of those 5 days, a guy named Jamie, he was David's roommate, he asked her, how would you feel about sharing your story? And she said something really brave. She says, I think if one person could relate to this, then maybe there'd be a purpose for some of the pain in my life.
Wow, that's powerful.
Yeah, like that sense of humility. Renee at this point was 19 years old, and to this day, she's one of the most wise people I've ever met. But she said, we can share this in the hopes that someone could find hope. So Renee, the next day, checked into treatment, and Jamie sat down and wrote a 2-page story about what those 5 days look like. He called it To Write Love on Our Arms for the same reason I told you.
Yep.
He put the story on MySpace because it was 2006, and that's what we all did. Mm-hmm. And he made 200 shirts that just read To Write Love on Our Arms. The hope was to sell those in the community to help fundraise for her treatment. Well, we had some friends in touring bands at the time, and they wore the shirt as they toured, and their fans got curious. They would Google the name, they read the story, and they said, Renee actually sounds a lot like my dad. Renee sounds a lot like my best friend. If I'm honest, Renee sounds a lot like me, our hope and help options for me as well. So we really grew as a response to your response to a story, and it really spread like wildfire after that. People joining this chorus of saying, I don't know if I had the words for depression, or I don't know if addiction really made sense as a self-describer, but I know what it feels like to be alone.
Right.
I know what it feels like to feel betrayed. I know what it feels like to feel like I'm powerless against some of the stuff that I'm up against, but we're seeing a community slowly emerge. This was the golden age of the internet, of social media. It was a time where people were finding alternatives to face-to-face conversations around things that have been shamefully swept to the side, but people were finding bold options to continue their story. And we kept pulling the thread from there. How many people can we help? Where else can we go? Who else is curious about these conversations? And yes, that's led us to music festivals. Yes, that's led us to colleges and high schools. Yes, that's led us to legal-based podcasts. It's brought us all over the world. But we're seeing that the internet has really done a value to us in shrinking the world. My friend Chris says that the internet brings death to distance, and we're here to say that we are standing on common ground wherever you're listening to this, wherever you're viewing this, wherever you're having one of these life-giving conversations. You, like Renee, are still in good company.
Wow. And I hear so much talk about how social media and our internet use is causing a lot of mental health challenges. But I do love that we're actually using social media and the internet for this really good cause and this really good connection and community.
We've certainly seen the best and the worst that the internet has to offer. And in many ways, we're still trying to figure out what this digital home looks like. And as with any home, there's space to remodel. There's space to do better. Yeah. There's space to grow out, and there's space to, look at the wallpaper and say, this doesn't serve us anymore. Let's change how this place looks so that we can feel safer, more comfortable, more connected.
So you started with a MySpace and some T-shirts.
Yeah.
Where has To Write Love evolved? Where is the organization at now, 20 years later? 20 years later,
we grew up in Central Florida, and we still call Central Florida home. We're based beachside of Orlando, a little town called Melbourne, Florida. And even though that's where our headquarters is, we have a team of a little over 20 employees. About half of us are remote now. So wherever they call home is where TWLOHA calls home as well. But yeah, like I mentioned, music was so instrumental in our start, and it continues so to this day. We were at 30 some odd live music and lifestyle events just this year. I would say with 99% confidence that we are the most present mental health entity anywhere in live music across North America. This, again, is not so much based on a business strategy, but rather we love people. We want to be where people naturally come together. Music being a place that a lot of us run to make sense of our lives. So that is still a place that we find a ton of value, not just in meeting new people, but also maintaining relationships of folks that we've met, some of them 19 years back.
I love that. I love that. Now, I know you have shared before some of your own personal mental health journey, but talk to me a little bit. How have your experiences motivated you in this outreach role to do what you do with To Write Love?
Yeah. So I'm here at To Write Love on Our Arms. I'm here at this podcast desk. I'm still here on this planet as a testament of the value of community. As Renee's story was unfolding, mine was taking a parallel course. So you name the issues that we address in our mission statement: depression, addiction, self-injury, thoughts of suicide. These were all chapters of my life. My mental health journey really didn't start in earnest until halfway through college. I was serving as an RA at my university, and I was in the midst of some serious mental health struggles, a lot of anxiety that I'd probably carried with me from childhood and adolescence, and just not knowing how to deal with it. There were different crises in my life that I felt utterly unequipped to manage. A crisis of faith, a crisis of relationship, a crisis of family. And I went back to school and took this opportunity to be an RA with the belief that I could outthink a lot of what I was struggling with.
Does that work?
Not so great. Being in a position of relative authority at a university that has a degree of prestige attached to it, this was not a place to show vulnerability.
Right.
And it was that stubborn desire to keep a strong face that almost was my undoing. So as an RA, I knew how to help everyone else but myself. I felt that the resources that I would prescribe wouldn't fit me well, either because I would lose that, degree of authority or that degree of acclaim within my own community. Or again, I just thought I was somehow better than what was threatening my life. And this really came to a head. This was the summer before my fourth year of college, where my depression was growing unchecked. My substance abuse was my only crutch, and self-injury had been a wake-up call to me to know that I was out of control, but I didn't see any opportunity to reassert control over all the things that were causing me deep pain. And I remember it was halfway through that summer break, staying at my university, and it was a late night. The bar had closed. I had nowhere else to go, and my mind went to some dark places. And I take out my phone and start flipping through numbers, just wondering who in this phone that's supposed to give me a lifeline, that's supposed to be a source of connection, who here still feels like a safe place? Who here would pick up the phone right now if I called? And I found one number that stuck out to me, and that was my friend Kim. Kim answered the phone close to 3 a.m. She picked me up. I thought, at the very least, I have a ride home. I don't have to pay a cab or don't have to walk, call that a win in a world that felt utterly winless at the time. And we drove right past my apartment, and we went to hers. And I said, well, Kim, you missed a turn back there. And she goes, shut up. Just shut up. You're going to have to stay with me right now. So I'm like, all right, fine. It's still a free ride. We get back to her place. She sits me on the couch, gives me a bottle of water, and says, it's time to talk. I said, all right, talk about what? She goes, no, you don't get to pull that card. We're talking about you. We're talking about life. We're talking about when was the last time I saw you smile? What is going on? Can you let me in? And I took this as a dare.
Okay.
That if I had one friend left on my phone, and this friend is now sitting across the couch from me, if I could end this conversation and feel like she had left me, if I could prove to myself that I am now totally alone, then I can leave this earth kind of, things were tied up. I exhausted every option.
Right.
I went into that conversation knowing that if the best she could offer me is I believe in you, that wouldn't be enough. So I told her about my depression. I told her about my drinking. I told her about the drugs. I told her about the self-injury. I told her about the self-hatred and self-doubt. And as I'm telling her this, I noticed that the pace of my talking gets quicker. I'm starting to lift my voice. I'm yelling at the last person that has my back. And I said, "Can I be too much for you now?" She said, "No."
Wow.
She said, "No." She said, "You don't get to convince me if I care about you or not." And she said, "We are going to get through this together." Like I just told you, if she said, "You can do this," that wasn't enough. I never anticipated
you needed the
being an option. This was my first taste of community. This was my first proof that I could be vulnerable and not spontaneously combust. This was proof that I can fall apart and someone can be there to hold me back together. And, Jessica, it'd be a lie to say that my life was fixed overnight. That doesn't happen. But I knew that I had someone there on my best days to celebrate with me, on my worst days to commiserate with me. On a day that I am standing in Starbucks and I forgot my wallet, I knew that she would be there even for the mundane, because she proved that she can be there for the life and death moments. But when we find people to bear with us in the mundane, in the boring parts of life, that's really where this miracle of community takes form. So I've already talked way too long about this. So fast forward a few months, and my recovery is going pretty well. And I have a resident, a first year student, as I'm a fourth year about to exit school, who's in the common room. He's on his computer, and I just ask what he's looking at, and he goes, "Oh, it's this cool thing. I think it has a little to do with music. It's online. It's called To Write Love on Our Arms." And I said, "Send me a link." And he did. I go back to my room and I read Renee's story. And I'm seeing myself in every sentence. And I was really encouraged that here we have a story that is happening in real time. I come from a culture where people are comfortable talking about difficult things, but only in hindsight. Only I'm now 10, 20, 30 years removed from this pain, and look how great life is now. But this was a story that didn't have a guarantee of a happy ending,
right,
but it was still worth telling. That was telling me that my life could be unpolished and unabridged and still worthy of being shared. I was moved. That night, I bought a T-shirt. I bought a pack of info cards to distribute around my school. I was inspired by this. And during the same time, I had a mentor that told me, "Chad, the only difference between shit and fertilizer is purpose." They both came from a cow's butt. It just depends on what we do with it. Are we going to outrun it? Are we going to shovel it away? Are we going to create distance, or are we going to allow some growth to happen through it? So this was an opportunity for me to use some of the difficult parts of my life in the hopes that more conversations were yet to be had, that there were still people that could relate to Renee, relate to Chad, relate to you, listener. If you have a lived experience with this, your story is something sacred and worth sharing. That's where we find community.
That is amazing. And I know, even though there's more information out there and we're talking about it now on social media and everywhere, I still think that there are so many people out there who struggle with silence, struggle in silence, who don't know of the resources or who don't try to access them. Why do you think that is? What barriers are there for people accessing these resources that we have? And what does To Write Love do to help?
Yeah, I think there's a number of different lenses that we can attack this talking point with. I think the first is this idea of stigma, just really understanding what that means and what it is we're up against.
What does it mean?
Yeah, well, to me, stigma is whenever silence is the loudest voice in a conversation. Stigma allows
That's a great way of putting it.
Yeah, with a lot of practice and retooling of what that can mean, but I also think stigma is what allows our assumptions about a topic to become our absolute truths about it. Think for a moment about your first conversation about mental health. This probably goes back to middle school, maybe even elementary school.
Right.
That conversation was probably gifted to you by pop media. My mind goes to Saved by the Bell, seeing Jesse Spano struggling with caffeine pills. I hope y'all have seen that episode.
Yes.
So that foundational for me. But oftentimes, if it's not by pop media, then it may be by a rumor or a whisper or a punchline. And at any rate, these aren't fertile grounds for conversation. If you're being talked about, or if you're being told about mental health through a television screen, there's no opportunity for dialogue. There's no opportunity to ask follow-up questions. Mm-hmm. If this is being relayed to you through locker room rumors, then again, there's no space to ask, what does that actually mean? What is it that we're talking about? So these bad ideas get planted.
For your parents or your family.
You are conditioned into silence. You're told not to talk about these things. And so these bad ideas are nourished with this silence, and they grow into these forests that become very, very difficult to navigate. So I think it's that stigma, these bad ideas that go unchallenged for far too long. That is what what so much of the shame apparatus around mental health is rooted in. Beyond that, in my experience, anecdotally, most people don't ask for help for one of two reasons. One, they don't know who to ask. I don't even know where to go to break this silence. I don't know who I can trust with this story. I've heard this idea of counseling, but I don't know how to navigate that to figure out where to find a counselor. Or number two, I don't even know if it's okay to ask. Again, that's that stigma. That it feels unsafe. It's taboo to talk about this. If I bring this up, then what does that say about me?
Right.
So the internet has given us opportunities to be bold in asking some of these questions, but we still need to be careful on how we are nurturing this idea of dialogue, that we believe at To Write Love on Our Arms that people need other people. That is one thing to say something, it's another thing to hear it, to receive it, to internalize that, and to mirror that back. I heard you say this. That makes me think of this. Does that sound right? Are we closing the gap between us, or are we causing more distance in the ways that we're having these conversations about mental health?
Interesting. So that's really part of reducing that stigma, is just that mirroring, that being vulnerable back to the person.
Right. When someone says that they are struggling with grief, when someone says that they're struggling with addiction, when someone says they're struggling with anxiety, what do I do? It's okay to say, that's a big question. I don't know. But we can find the next step together. That you aren't going to be fixed by anything you read on one of our t-shirts or anything you're going to see on a billboard. And at the end of the day, this isn't about fixing you. You're not a problem to be fixed. You're a story that's still going. Every story deserves an audience, right?
Yeah.
So it's about finding these spaces that we can continue asking better questions in good company, and figure out the next steps to take together.
Well, for those listening out there who are listening to this conversation, what would you say are some common misconceptions that people may have about struggling, about their mental health journey, about all of these things that we've been talking about, addiction, self-harm, those type of things?
Yeah. The first first and most important thing I'd love to say is that you are not a burden.
Wow.
Burdens are things that we have. They are not things that we are. You are not your diagnosis. You are not your pain. And there are people there to help you carry whatever it is that's weighing you down. I have a friend from the Netherlands, and he was telling me in his family they have this proverb that says loosely, a grief shared is half the weight. Can you get through mental health challenges alone? Probably. People are capable of any number of really amazing things, but you don't get bonus points for going through it alone. So share it. Find people that you trust. Not everyone is instantly going to be a team member. It takes time to figure out who you can trust and to what depth you can trust them. But I know that those people in those places exist. At the very least, we have the resources that you mentioned earlier. If you can't call a friend or a family member, you can call 988. If you are curious about what it looks like to find a counselor in your area, on our website, TWLOHA.com. We have a number of resources available. You can even use our website to find affordable mental health care options by zip code, something nearby, something that meets you where you are geographically and financially. And this kind of goes back to your previous question. What are some of the reasons people don't ask for help?
Right.
Look, man, finances is real. In America,
and insurance is tough.
The insurance is tough. And in America, the reality is for any degree of healthcare, mental health care, behavioral health care, physical health care, you get what you pay for. But there are still options for financial aid, for assistance. Just because a counselor has a rate posted on their website on what it costs to see them per hour, there's not a law that says they have to stick to that. Asking questions about things like sliding scale or group therapy options or even totally free peer support networks. These are all options. We tend to buy this lie that mental health looks like one thing. Caring for your mental health has to look like medication or has to look like a counselor or has to look like a 12-step group. No, it doesn't have to look like anything. The language in mental health is a mental health care plan, not a formula. You are way too nuanced to say that A squared plus B squared equals C squared for every behavioral health and mental health and emotional health challenge in your life.
We are complicated creatures.
But what are plans? Plans are meant to be amended. Plans are informed by wise voices.
Right.
Plans are there to bend as we recover, as we get better, as we make strides, or as we take steps back. If we have a momentary slip or a relapse, the plan can still stay in place. That, I'm hopping on like 5 different soapboxes at once here.
No,
but
this is great.
But the reality is, you are worth the time it takes to find what makes sense for you. Mental health care is going to be some degree of trial and error. Try a counselor on. If it fits, wear it. If not, it's okay. I wish that's something someone told me when I started my mental health care journey. My first 3 counselors I saw, they were a bad fit for me. And that led me to believe that I was just a really messed up person. And that's not true. Look, there's 8 billion people on the planet. I'm not going to jive with all 8 billion of them.
And that's not on you.
It's not on me.
It's just different humans.
And it doesn't make them a bad counselor either.
Right.
We're just put together differently. So it takes time to find these therapeutic relationships, whether it's a counselor or how we heal in friendships and family dynamics and all of that. This takes time. I have another friend, her name's Joanna, and she says, look, when we think about recovery, we can't buy this lie that we are recovering to utopia. No, we're just trying to find what normal looks like again.
Right.
You recover back to real life. So yeah, that takes time. They're awkward strides. We have a lot to relearn, but man, once the things start clicking, you wonder, why it took you so long to ask for help in the first place.
I love that. And going on your website and the organization's website, I loved looking at all of the resources that were available, from finding the counselors to the crisis intervention and help and all of those resources. So I think that's really, really awesome that somebody has a place to go to if, obviously in crisis, 988, but those resources define the tools that they need. I know when we are helping individuals with their mental health journey, one of the things that we do is we work with families if they need to help a loved one either in a Baker Act or a Marchman Act situation. And I'm not sure if you're aware, but the Baker Act and the Marchman Acts are really helpful tools in those situations because it allows a person to be taken to a psychiatric facility for an emergency evaluation if they believe that they're a danger to themselves or to others due to a mental illness or an addiction or something like that. And that person can be held up to 72 hours for an evaluation. They can get that emergency treatment that's needed. So it really is a helpful tool for families in that kind of crisis situation. And I talk to a lot of clients and a lot of families about deciding whether they want to do a Baker Act or a Marchman Act situation. And their question is always, well, I don't want to get the police involved. That can sometimes be a dangerous situation, having the police come in to an emergency type situation. And one of the common misconceptions that I talk with the clients about is that you don't have to get the police involved.
Yes.
That we can file a petition on behalf of the family members for that individual and provide the court with documentation and information showing that the individual needs to have that psychiatric care and needs to be in that short-term facility to get that emergency care that they need.
Yeah.
And we're able to work with the treatment providers to make sure that the family members, that it's not just cut off.
Yeah.
Right? Because a lot of times families think, okay, well, if I do this and I put my family member in a Baker Act or in a Marchman Act treatment facility, that I can't speak to them again, like I'm cut off of any type of care that they have. And so we're really good to be able to work with the families to make sure that the treatment providers have the information that they need to care for the individual, that we can have that flow of communication as much as we can during the process. So I think in those crisis kind of situations, it is really good to be able to have not only the mental health support, the 988 texting or calling, and the suicide hotline, but also to know that there are these legal resources that are available in that kind of crisis situation, which I think is important.
And thank you for drawing those out, for illuminating that. And the reality is, now is a great time, dear listeners, to do some Googling, to research what that might look like in your own neck of the woods, in your own community. What do some of these, not only the laws look like, but who are some of the advocates in your area? Who are some of the Jessicas that live nearby that can help you navigate this? Do it now, because when we're having these conversations about a loved one in crisis, that is unfair to the person we're trying to help, and ultimately unfair to you to have to balance your heart in that moment and your logic on what steps do we take. I have a list in my phone under my notes app called my oh shit list. And it's there for the moments when I'm having a conversation and I go, oh shit. Because now I don't have to think what are steps 1 through 10.
Right.
I have the resources handy. I know where the local hospitals are.
Yes.
I know where the local resources are. I have some counselors in my phone that I can pick their brains. There's a number of different things that we can have at the ready to be better sources of care for when we really need it. Another resource I'd love for your folks, your listeners, your community to know about is 211. That is available in every county nationwide. You call 211 and you can learn about what social services exist in your area.
That's really helpful. Wow.
While this doesn't exist in every county, I, again, recommend you to do some research. Ask about mobile crisis response teams. Yes. These are here to respond to behavioral, emotional, and mental health challenges and crises that do not necessitate a police intervention. So if you're talking to someone and the mood changes and it becomes clear that they could use some help, but you know that flashing lights and loud sirens and maybe seeing a bulletproof vest or a firearm is going to do damage to this
and not help at all,
you can request for a mobile response team to be the first one on site to meet those needs.
That's awesome.
This is also very, very helpful for our friends and family that live with autism spectrum or any other co-occurring mental health or behavioral health challenge. This is a tool worth seeing if it exists in your area. And if it does not, call your local politician. You're not going to get anything you don't ask for, right?
That's true.
So advocate for yourself, advocate for your friends. The last thing I'd love to bring up is with the Baker Act piece. There are, again, when you have this conversation, your fight or flight mechanism in your brain is going to be firing.
Right.
These are scary conversations. You are going to launch into fix-it mode and you are doing risk assessments. You're wondering, okay, if I call to institute a Baker Act, is my loved one ever going to speak to me again? Are they going to be mad at me? What if I lose the opportunity to continue a relationship with them because they feel betrayed? Yeah. Time heals a number of wounds. And our goal here is to create as much time as possible.
Yes.
A prerequisite to someone being mad at you is them being alive. Yes. So, and this is also the case. Here's another soapbox. The number of people that I talk to that work either in the policing field or the military, I've talked to them and they've shared about the struggles, the stress that they're under, the anxieties, the depression, the thoughts of suicide. And I said, you should talk to someone. They said, well, if I do, then I might lose this position, or I may be put on leave, or I may have to leave this career altogether. And again, I say, well, you have to be alive to be on the job search, yes. So if you make an early exit, you're also out of a job. So let's find ways to get through this together. The reality is when we're talking about something like suicide, I believe that we're talking about ultimately the fatal result of a restricted perspective. Yeah. That if we only allow our depression, our anxiety, our substance abuse to be the only other dialogue partner in these conversations about our own well-being, then we're not getting the full picture. So we need to include more voices. We need to get a more realistic and honest view on what it is we are struggling with, what it is we're up against, and what are the options that we can move towards to create a safer, healthier, more complete version of ourselves.
That's the community.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. This is fun. So we were talking about crisis.
Yeah.
And so talk to me though about the other side of that, right? When somebody is not in crisis anymore, but we're talking about the recovery.
Yeah.
I know you mentioned it's not a straight line. It's not a one size fits all. It's not the same recovery for every person. But talk to me a little bit about what that looks like and how the organization helps.
Yeah. So often, this kind of goes back to the first thing we talked about with what was informing our original vocabulary about mental health.
Yes.
So often we are navigating these crises and we're navigating our roads to recovery and through recovery with a malnourished vocabulary on what it is we're living with. So one thing that our website offers is opportunity to learn about people walking similar paths with you. This can help us conceptualize and better wrap our minds around what it is we are experiencing. It's very scary. I mean, just think about physical health challenges. it's very hard to treat something when we don't have a diagnosis.
That's true.
Right?
Yeah.
When we don't know what we're up against. So even hearing a diagnosis, that can initially be scary, but what that does is it fast forwards a timeline. So now we know what we're up against. We know what treatments work. We know what treatments don't. We're not going to waste your time with things that aren't going to be effective or valuable to you. So I recommend spending some time on our website, reading the blogs, reading these stories of people. And not every story is, again, wrapped up in a neat little bow about, here are the 3 things I did that changed my life entirely. You're not going to read one of those blogs on our website. You are going to see people who learned how to ask better questions. You are going to hear stories on our podcast of people who are still navigating grief, are still navigating big questions on what it looks like to put life back together. And again, these aren't things that you are going to outthink. You're not going to out-mantra a mental health diagnosis. No more than, if I were just riding my bike.
You're not going to walk off a broken leg.
Exactly. If we're just down the street from a coffee shop, a lot of people bike to. And if someone, I'm looking out the window now, and if that dude fell off his bike, broke his leg, I run up to him and say, man, like, we should take you to the hospital. Him saying, no, well, it doesn't hurt that bad. Well, no, like, I can see your leg is broken. We need to go. Yeah. No, well, other people have it worse. Dude, I'm not talking about other people. I'm talking about you. It's okay to say, ouch.
Yes.
It's okay to say, this sucks. It's okay to get a cast, to use some crutches. Because in time, with therapy, with help, with these different, structures in place to get better, you won't always need that. You can get on the bike again. You'll probably be a little more cautious moving forward, and that's good. Maybe next time you fall off, you'll be quicker to ask for help, and that's great. Maybe next time you won't be so hesitant to say, yeah, like, let's call an ambulance right now, instead of waiting for a day, a week, a month, a year before you address it.
Right.
So, man, at risk of really getting lost in this metaphor, the idea is that we are all unique. We are all nuanced, but we are not all so special that we can't relate to other people. So, spending some time to learn about what it is you are living with. You don't need to find all the answers on WebMD.
Right.
Find some answers through stories, through sharing experiences.
And the community online.
In the community online and the community face-to-face.
Yeah.
Whether this is a peer support group, a 12-step recovery group, or any other place that you can feel valued, that you can feel seen, heard, and cared for, these are great places to invest in.
So I have a question. So I know we talk a lot and have mentioned a lot for any of the listeners who are struggling, who are going through a crisis, who are on that mental health journey. But I have a question for you as far as, what about those listeners who maybe are not personally struggling? But what can they do to support mental health advocacy, reduce the stigma that we talked about, or help someone else that they see may be struggling?
Yeah. I think that's one thing that's really unique about mental health and mental health care, is that you do not have to have a diagnosis of severe depression in order to care about it. In fact, the way that we have structured our mission statement, that we're there to support anyone struggling with mental health challenges, you don't have to have that diagnosis to struggle. It hurts to see someone you love hurting. And it's okay to admit that that hurts. It's okay to admit that you are without, any answers, clear-cut paths that you can begin. Like, this is stressful to feel powerless as you're trying to help someone else.
Yeah.
So again, now is a great time to research in your area where some reliable places to find help are. as I'm saying this, I'm also aware that there's roughly 500 counties nationwide that are mental health deserts.
Right.
These are places that don't have a single psychiatrist, counselor, or psychologist employed in their local government. And that sucks. Again, we are living in a really weird time where we can believe that our voice has been devalued, but keep speaking up. Even in these areas, it's good to ring some loud bells so that people who may be struggling can at least see that you care, that whatever it is they're going through matters to someone else in their community. So don't ever doubt the power of your own voice. Even when you don't feel like the powers that be are hearing you, there are people that need to know that their life matters in your presence. So speak up.
Well, if somebody wants to get involved with To Write Love on Her Arms, whether to volunteer, to donate, or just to be an ally spreading awareness, where can they go? What's the best place to do that?
So the best place to go is going to be our website, and that's our acronym, TWLOHA.com. We actually have a subpage that says Get Involved, and the ways to get involved, we mentioned some examples, but we're open to anything that seems a worthwhile investment of your time in your own community. So if you're a runner, you can join one of our marathon teams. If you are an educator, you can invite us to your campus. If you run a corporation or a community of faith and you are wondering what it looks like to be a suicide prevention advocate in your own area, we have trainings that we would love to give to your communities. If you are just someone that is chronically online, give us a follow anywhere on social media. A simple follow or repost or sharing some of our social media, that actually has value. If you care to invest in what we do have a store. We also have opportunities for you to invest in what we do on a monthly basis. We call that our TWLOHA Blue community. The ways to get involved can be as simple as supporting your favorite brand online through social media, or inviting us into your community. But like I mentioned before, we believe that the only way that we're going to move the needle on these big numbers is by being attuned to the needs of our community. We didn't start this in the effort to be a global nonprofit. That happened because of you. That was all your faults. We were just trying to be present in our own community. And we've seen people answer that call. We've seen people show up. We've seen people learn more and be more empathetic and share us in ways that we never could have come up with, regardless of how many brilliant business leaders would speak into our organization. Nothing is going to be as powerful as your heart speaking to your community. We stand on the shoulders of giants. And these are folks that I get to meet on the road from time to time. People that are still alive because Jessica decided to host this podcast, because someone sent them a bracelet of our organization just at the right time, because someone passed off some information about 988 at a suicide prevention walk, and that encouraged someone to take that first step towards hope and help. We don't get to choose the stories that we're a part of, but we do get to choose how we respond. And our goal is just to be as invitational as possible to encourage as many of these unique responses as possible.
Wow. Well, thank you so much for sharing your time today, your heart, your perspective on the mental health journey with us. I'm really grateful for the work that you and To Write Love on Her Arms do for the community and do for everyone. So thank you so much for being here today and being with me.
Well, thank you for the time. Thank you. I know you are so busy. So just having this time to meet another community member that cares, someone else that's hoping to get the good word out there. We're thankful for you, for the listeners, for the viewers, for everyone interacting with this and sharing this. Yeah, thanks for allowing our stories to collide.
Thank you. Thank you so much for joining us for Season 1 of Fighting Back Podcast. We hope that you found these episodes entertaining, informative. I hope you learned a little something about the law and life from what you heard. If you've enjoyed our episodes, I hope that you come back with us in 2026. We will have more guests, more information, and hopefully a great time. So we'll see you guys in 2026. Have a great new year.
Thank you so much for listening. If you found this episode helpful or informative, don't forget to follow us on social media and share this podcast with your friends. Like, follow, subscribe so you never miss a show, and help others know their rights by spreading the word. Your support helps us keep fighting back. The information provided in the Fighting Back podcast is for general informational purposes only and is not intended as legal advice. Every case is unique and should be reviewed by a qualified attorney who can provide guidance based on the specific facts and circumstances of your case. Listening to this podcast does not create an attorney-client relationship with Fighter Law or any of its attorneys. If you are facing any legal issue, we strongly encourage you to consult with a licensed attorney directly.